My wife didn't just cheat. She used my entire life savings to fund her escape with another man. But what she didn't know, I'm an engineer. I don't just build structures. I design collapses. And when their lies came crashing down, they never saw it coming. Logan Pierce's corner office on the 28th floor of Manhattan's architectural district framed the skyline like a precise blueprint. 15 years in structural engineering had trained his mind to detect flaws not only in steel and concrete, but in behavior, in patterns, in people. Lately, the patterns in his home life seemed off. He sat in silence as the latest monthly bank statements loaded on his screen. Transactions from upscale restaurants like the Marlowe and Isla West had been appearing frequently, each tagged under his wife's PR business account. $280 for lunch, $340 for dinner. Those numbers raised alarms. Ruby had always been frugal, keeping meticulous expense records for every client interaction. These recent charges lacked any notations or client names, just vague business meeting descriptions. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Pierce, the site contractors from Northfield are here." "Send them in," he replied, minimizing the statement window. 3 men entered. The lead man, a foreman named Mike Riley, held a stack of blueprints, but avoided Logan's eyes. They began discussing revisions on the support beam specs, which had supposedly added $35,000 to the project budget. The explanation didn't hold up. Material costs hadn't shifted that much. Logan knew he'd monitored the same market trends for years. And the name they invoked as the source of the change? Wade Miller, a real estate agent. That name came with its own flashing red lights. Wade had become more than a passing acquaintance in Ruby's social circle the past year. Too often, he appeared at events Logan wasn't invited to. Wade wasn't authorized to make structural changes, yet here he was, somehow influencing multimillion-dollar builds. After a tense meeting, Logan left the office without heading home. Instead, he drove to their brownstone in Greenwich Village. Ruby had sent a brief message. "Big fire with the Norwell account. Don't wait up. Love you." Her wording felt rehearsed. The townhouse was quiet. Too quiet. Every room seemed unfamiliar, like it belonged to someone else. He walked through the main hallway, each step echoing memories he wasn't sure he trusted anymore. In the office, he began organizing old files, something Ruby had recently been pushing him to do. She even hired a professional organizer last month, insisting it was time to declutter. That insistence had felt strange at the time. Now it felt calculated. A thick, untitled leather journal caught his eye. It was not one of his. He opened it. The early entries were romantic, even sweet. Dated October 9th, 2021. One read, "Logan surprised me with ballet tickets tonight. He's always so thoughtful, planning every detail of our future. Most men would use their inheritance selfishly. He's building a legacy for us." Then came the shift. A year later, the tone darkened. April 12th, 2023. Met Wade today to discuss retreat properties. He's everything Logan isn't: bold, spontaneous. When his hand touched mine during the tour, I felt something I haven't felt in years: life. Page after page, the affair unfolded. Descriptions of secret weekends disguised as work travel. Whispers of schemes discussed over candlelit dinners. Ruby and Wade had been laying the groundwork for something far more sinister than infidelity. June 19th, 2023. The lake house Ethan offered us has become our haven. He says Logan's too mechanical to notice. Wade brings champagne. We watch the sun go down and imagine our future empire. It wasn't just emotional betrayal. It was strategic. Ruby's sister Lena, a junior attorney, was even helping fabricate a divorce narrative. August 7th, 2024. Lena's building a case. Every time Logan checks project emails at dinner, she documents it. Every disagreement gets spun into controlling behavior. She's connected. She knows what to present to make me look like the victim. Logan read the next entry 3 times. February 28th, 2025. The Northfield property is our way out. Logan thinks it's his gift to me, an anniversary house. In reality, it's the beginning of our escape. Wade already has shadow buyers lined up. The contractors are padding the invoices. Money we'll use to leave. Just a few more months and I'm done pretending. A knock on the door pulled him from the pages. Ethan Burke stood at the threshold, warm smile, tailored jacket, holding a bottle of wine. Thought I'd stop by, see how the vacation house plans were going. Logan gestured toward the seating area. Just reviewing the estimates. Finding everything in order? Ethan's voice was casual, but his eyes flicked briefly to the journal on the desk. Logan offered a half-smile. The support beam pricing looks imaginative. Strange how specs evolve without my input. Ethan shrugged. Construction's expensive these days. Supply chain's brutal. Logan stood and walked to the window. You know, it only takes one flaw in a foundation to bring the whole thing down. Ethan left minutes later, less confident than when he arrived. That night, Logan attended a dinner hosted by Lena. She was glowing, announcing her pending promotion to senior associate. Throughout the evening, she monitored his behavior, making casual notes each time he checked his phone. Ruby played the doting wife. Wade arrived late, conveniently dropping off paperwork for Ruby. His tan was fresh, like he'd just spent a weekend by the lake. Logan raised his glass. To new beginnings, he toasted. Their smiles met his, unaware that the storm had already begun. The diary, now locked in his briefcase, was more than a record of betrayal. It was evidence. But Logan held something even more powerful: clarity. And a plan. Logan Pierce sat alone in his home office, the city lights casting sharp reflections across the glass table. The leather-bound journal lay closed beside him, its weight heavier than steel. Betrayal etched on every page had stripped away the illusions of his marriage. But Logan was not a man to respond with impulsive anger. He responded with precision. His next step was clear: he needed evidence. The type that couldn't be twisted in a courtroom or diluted by emotional narratives. First, he contacted Lila Moreno, a forensic accountant Head worked with on a corporate fraud case 3 years earlier. Her analytical brilliance had once saved a multimillion-dollar development deal from collapsing due to internal theft. Lila's office, overlooking the edge of the East River, was as sharp and minimalistic as her reputation. By the next morning, Logan sat across from her as she clicked through spreadsheets, her expression tightening with every scroll. What she uncovered was almost insulting in its simplicity. Ruby had funneled nearly $190,000 in staged business expenses through Ethan Burke's restaurant payments disguised as event hosting, venue rentals, and client dinners. None of them had ever taken place. There were no invoices from clients, no guest lists, no follow-ups. Only pristine receipts generated by Ethan's staff. Each transaction was just below federal reporting thresholds, spaced across months with surgical consistency. The laundering was basic but effective. Too effective for Ruby to have done it alone. Lila handed him a flash drive. Inside, clean documentation, annotated and time-stamped, all legally obtained. Each file backed by restaurant records, matched against non-existent events. But Lila didn't stop there. She dug deeper into the construction records tied to the Northfield project, the house Ruby believed would be their escape route. Logan already suspected something was wrong, but the full extent stunned even him. The contractors had inflated material costs by more than 40%, splitting the overage between Wade Miller and shell companies tied to obscure real estate entities across 3 states. Everything was designed to look just legitimate enough to avoid casual scrutiny. But with Lila's trained eye, it unraveled quickly. While she handled the financials, Logan turned to someone who knew how to find ghosts in machines: Ryan Wells. His former college roommate, once a dorm room coder, now ran a respected cybersecurity consultancy in Cambridge. Logan didn't need someone to hack. He needed someone who understood legal digital forensics. Ryan welcomed him with a nod, no small talk. Within minutes, Logan was led into a secured lab room. Dozens of monitors flickered with data. Ryan pulled up a screen and spoke in his usual blunt tone. She's been busy. Ruby had been maintaining an encrypted email account linked to a secondary cloud drive. Through that, she had shared Logan's financial records, banking data, investment accounts, even trust fund allocations with Wade. The files had detailed analyses of his daily patterns, work schedule, and travel habits. There were even spreadsheets documenting his gym attendance and social calendar. Ryan flipped through tabs. Shared documents, screen captures, encrypted chats. Each piece time-stamped and archived. The last folder Ryan opened was the one Logan hadn't dared to expect. It was labeled Lena Legal. Inside, fabricated incident reports painted Logan as controlling, emotionally manipulative, and financially domineering. Emma, or rather Lena Brooks, had been collecting witness accounts from Ethan and others, all framed to support a divorce strategy that cast Ruby as the oppressed spouse. These weren't just exaggerations. They were deliberate falsehoods, conversations twisted into accusations, financial discussions reframed as abuse, all stored on shared cloud storage that Ruby had carelessly linked to their family tablet. Ryan turned to Logan with a single question. "Do you want everything cataloged for court?" "Yes," Logan answered without hesitation. "And I want it airtight." For the next several days, Logan began assembling what could only be described as a legal war chest. Lila compiled the financials, tax evasion, laundering, contract inflation. Ryan documented the digital trail, data theft, invasion of privacy, fraudulent legal narratives. Together, they created a map of betrayal so detailed it could be presented as a case study in white-collar deception. Meanwhile, Ruby continued her performance. She sent cheerful texts about dinner plans, asked for transfers to cover client gifts, and updated him on Lena's upcoming promotion celebration. Logan responded dutifully, never giving any indication he knew the full extent of the conspiracy. Every call, every message became another line in the script she unknowingly played in. Then came the moment that confirmed it all. Ruby called midday, asking if Logan could transfer $12,000 to their shared account. She claimed it was for a surprise party Lena wanted to throw for Caleb Knox, one of their closest allies. Her tone was light, warm, familiar. Logan promised he'd handle it, then quietly called Lila to freeze access to all accounts Ruby might try to touch. By now, Logan was operating on another level. Each member of Ruby's circle had become a node in a network of deception, and each was vulnerable in a unique way. Ethan's restaurant, built on forged receipts. Wade's professional ethics, compromised by real estate manipulation. Lena's legal future, tied to falsified statements. They had all played a dangerous game, assuming Logan was too methodical, too focused, too safe to see it coming. But the irony was brutal, because Logan hadn't simply uncovered a betrayal. He had discovered a system, and now he was going to dismantle it piece by piece. The calm before the storm never felt more calculated. Logan Pierce stood at the threshold of a quiet revolution. The files, the spreadsheets, the logs, all neatly categorized, encrypted, and backed up twice. The diary remained locked in a fireproof safe, serving as both a reminder and a threat. Each passing day, Ruby, Wade, Ethan, and Lena played their parts in the performance. But Logan was the one holding the script now. Every morning began the same. Coffee, emails, short calls about project timelines. Each act designed to keep appearances intact. Ruby still sent him updates about client meetings and brunches with Lena, sprinkled with affectionate emojis and reassurances. He answered with matching energy, never once revealing that her entire plan had already unraveled beneath her. Behind the scenes, Logan moved with surgical precision. The first action was subtle. He shifted all protected assets into a trust established by his grandfather, a legal firewall Ruby couldn't breach. Then came the real estate transactions. Ryan Wells identified Wade's private communications with construction firms involved in the Northfield house. One email discussed creative valuation of the property. Another outlined offshore routing of excess funds. Lila Moreno's spreadsheets had already revealed that roughly $95,000 of event spending through Ethan's restaurant had no corresponding service records. Logan flagged the entries and prepared IRS reports with timestamps and supporting vendor discrepancies. It was all admissible, all irrefutable. Each step was methodical, quiet, and unseen. Logan also began recording. Legally, Lena Brooks, as a public-facing legal professional, had become bold in her comments. At a charity luncheon, she casually referenced Logan's supposed financial manipulation in front of colleagues. Logan, seated nearby, had his phone in recording mode the entire time. Her words, though polished, were damning. She had no idea the documents she'd been carefully compiling, emails, message logs, and false incident reports, were already in Logan's hands. She didn't realize every legal memo, every false claim of coercion had been downloaded from a shared device Ruby had carelessly synced to their home network. But Logan knew. Ethan Burke was next. Logan still maintained part ownership in Ethan's restaurant, a minor stake from years back that he'd mostly forgotten. But that detail gave Ryan the legal access to their digital infrastructure. Security footage from recent months confirmed that multiple corporate events Ruby billed had never taken place. Footage showed Ethan alone, printing receipts and filing folders. They were leaving behind trails of dishonesty in a world built on paper and screens. Logan was collecting it all, turning their casual sloppiness into the ropes that would eventually pull down their entire facade. Then came the deeper moves, ones Ruby never anticipated. Logan created a series of anonymous complaints and reports. The first was submitted to the State Real Estate Regulatory Board, complete with Wade's client data misuse, unethical property bundling, and false appraisals. The second went to the State Contractor Licensing Authority, outlining overbilling, invoice manipulation, and unlawful referral arrangements on the Northfield build. Meanwhile, Lena's employer, Harrison Pike, received a packet delivered directly to senior partner Caleb Knox. It included a full report of her attempts to fabricate evidence, stored on unsecured cloud drives and collected under false pretenses. Logan didn't sign anything. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. And it was speaking loudly now. That week, Lena invited Logan to lunch under the pretense of discussing Ruby's concerns. She leaned across the table, voice soft and calculated, trying to manipulate the moment. She spoke of financial pressure, emotional fatigue, and subtle allegations of coercion. Logan said nothing of the recording device in his jacket pocket capturing her every word. Nothing of the USB in his coat containing the drafts she'd written to influence a future court battle. She believed he was still in the dark. That evening, Logan watched Ruby glide through their home with the ease of a woman who thought the world still bent to her performance. She kissed his cheek, made small talk about weekend plans, mentioned that Wade might stop by to deliver paperwork. Her eyes didn't hold the same spark they once did, only calculation. As she left for what she called a late-night PR emergency, Logan checked her phone location through a linked app, one she never disabled. The pin dropped beside a remote lake house, owned by Ethan, the same address that showed up in Lila's financial reports multiple times, listed under client retreats. Logan sat by the fireplace, watching flames reflect off polished glass, his laptop open to a file labeled Final Phase. He had waited long enough. Tomorrow, the first official complaint would become public. The news about Wade's professional suspension would hit industry boards by noon. Lena's firm would call an emergency ethics meeting within 48 hours. Ethan's IRS audit would begin by the end of the week. Ruby? She would keep pretending, right up until the moment she was served. Logan closed his laptop and leaned back, the leather chair creaking beneath him. He didn't feel joy. Not yet. Just clarity. They had all gambled on the same flawed belief, that the man they betrayed wouldn't see them coming. But Logan Pierce wasn't reacting anymore. He was executing. The day began with precision, like the drawing of a flawless architectural line. Logan Pierce sat in Don Harper's corner office on the 27th floor of a sleek glass tower in Midtown, sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. The documents were spread out on a polished mahogany desk, each sheet representing a moment of betrayal now transformed into leverage. Don had handled many complex cases in his career, but this was different. There was no ambiguity. The evidence was layered, organized, undeniable. Ruby's financial transfers, Wade's contractor kickbacks, Ethan's laundering through staged events, Lena's false documentation, all connected like a network of unstable beams waiting to collapse. Everything was ready. Don handed Logan a file marked execution phase and walked through the steps once more. Logan's assets were secured behind a trust Ruby couldn't touch. The divorce petition included a full record of financial misconduct and supported a request for sole property retention. The vacation property, the one Ruby had called her escape plan, had been sold 48 hours earlier under Logan's name for a silent profit. The donation from the sale had already been wired to the Phoenix Foundation, a nonprofit Logan established to support victims of financial betrayal. The press release, written by a third-party firm, highlighted the story of an anonymous donor who had turned personal loss into advocacy. That afternoon, the ripple began. Across town, Wade Miller was called into his firm's ethics committee meeting. The board had received anonymous complaints detailing misuse of confidential client data, unethical construction referrals, and kickback schemes. Screenshots of internal messages and contracts, all provided by Logan and Ryan, left no room for rebuttal.
Wade's protest rend l'eau.
By evening, the firm's decision was public. Indefinite suspension pending investigation. In an industry where reputation sold million-dollar estates, the news was catastrophic. Logan watched from a cafe across the street as Wade exited the building, his expression stunned, phone pressed to his ear in desperation. Meanwhile, the state contractor board had launched an audit into Riley Construction, the firm behind the Northfield house. Excessive charges, unusual payment routing, and ties to shell companies triggered a full investigation. The contractors, many of whom had worked with Wade for years, faced possible license revocation. Then came Ethan. IRS agents arrived at his restaurant that afternoon. Logan, watching through the internal security system still accessible via his silent ownership stake, observed as agents interviewed staff about non-existent events and client bills. Ethan paced behind the bar, sweat visible despite the air conditioning, offering flimsy explanations about booking errors and accounting mistakes. They weren't listening. They were documenting. At the same time, Lena Brooks was summoned to an emergency meeting at Harrison Pike. Caleb Knox, the firm's senior partner and Logan's old friend, had reviewed every fabricated incident report, every falsified witness statement she had built, stored on shared cloud servers, downloaded legally, backed by timestamps and metadata. The conference room was quiet as Lena attempted to explain, but the damage was done. No explanation could justify creating false evidence against a family member, much less storing it on a shared account accessible by both parties. By the time she left the office, her legal career was finished. And then, at exactly 2 p.m., a courier entered Ruby Allen's PR firm carrying a sealed envelope and a thick stack of papers. The front desk assistant handed the documents directly to her as Logan, seated in his car parked across the street, watched through the building's glass facade. Ruby opened the envelope, her expression calm, until her eyes registered the heading, Petition for Divorce. Supporting exhibits attached. Within seconds, her expression shifted, then broke. Inside, Logan had included copies of her own diary entries, annotated financial records, photographs from Ethan's lake house, and encrypted email logs. The same records she believed hidden were now the foundation of her exposure. Her hands trembled. The firm phones began to ring around her. Minutes later, the news broke online. PR executive tied to financial scandal. Local news picked up the Phoenix Foundation launch, noting the unexpected connection to a senior executive recently placed on indefinite leave. That evening, Ruby returned to the house expecting confrontation. Instead, she found silence. Logan was gone. The home was empty, except for neatly arranged boxes, each containing evidence of her deceit. Bank statements, copies of transfers, photographs of hidden meetings, encrypted printouts of emails with Wade. On the kitchen table sat the leather-bound diary. Next to it, a brief handwritten note. You built your future on lies. I built mine on truth. This is where the weight shifts. As Logan watched from a hotel room miles away, the phone began to ring. Ruby first, then Wade, then Ethan, then Lena. One by one, he blocked them. One by one, their carefully constructed worlds were falling. 6 months later, the mountain air felt like freedom. Logan Pierce sat on the wraparound deck of a quiet chalet in the Colorado Highlands. The autumn sun poured across the landscape, igniting the orange tips of pine-covered peaks. The house was modest, 3 bedrooms, minimalist lines, natural timber and glass, but every square foot had been designed by his own hand. It was nothing like the opulent Northfield estate Ruby once craved. This wasn't a showpiece. It was a declaration. Every beam, every angle reflected restraint and intention. It had passive solar heating, rainwater collection, and locally sourced materials. It wasn't about aesthetics. It was about integrity. Inside, the drafting table stood clean, illuminated by natural light. The only decoration was a locked drawer. Inside it, the leather-bound diary. Not as a symbol of pain, but as insurance. Ruby had tried to recover her narrative, hiring a Chicago-based crisis management firm to spin her story as one of survival, not betrayal. The diary entries, paired with forensic records, silenced that attempt before it gained traction. Her career, once a pillar in national PR circles, had dwindled into a shadow. Now she handled regional accounts for mid-sized clients who had never heard of her scandal, or pretended they hadn't. Her attempts to restore her image always buckled under quiet background checks and questions no prepared statement could deflect. Wade Miller had fared no better. After his real estate license was suspended, he relocated to Florida and began working at a beachfront timeshare firm. Gone were the bespoke suites, the wine-paired showings, the penthouse listings. He now pushed fractional condo ownership to retirees from behind a laminated desk. The irony was merciless. Ethan Burke's fate had unfolded just as predictably. The IRS audit revealed years of creative accounting, far beyond the event laundering he'd done for Ruby. His restaurant closed within 3 months, sold at a 60% loss. He avoided prison through a plea deal, but Boston's culinary scene had shut its doors to him. Last Logan heard, he managed a chain steakhouse in a shopping mall outside Trenton, far from the prestige he once wielded. Lena Brooks, the once rising attorney, had returned to her parents' home in Connecticut. No firm would touch her after the ethics board's censure. The junior partnership offer at Harrison Pike had evaporated. She now worked as a paralegal in a suburban office, far from city towers and high-stakes negotiations. Her dreams of courtroom acclaim were buried beneath shame and sealed files. And Caleb Knox? His integrity had been rewarded. Reporting Lena's misconduct had solidified his reputation, and within a month, he was named senior managing partner. He and Logan met occasionally for lunch, their friendship reinforced not just by history but by mutual respect. Angela Moreno had expanded her forensic accounting firm, using Logan's case as a model for training her team. She gave talks at financial seminars, often citing Case X as an example of how even the most careful manipulation leaves a trail. Ryan Wells's cybersecurity business surged. His methodology during Logan's case was published in a legal journal, and within weeks, new clients lined up, corporate, legal, even federal. His Boston office now included Logan as a preferred advisory partner for infrastructure consulting. And then there was the Phoenix Foundation. What had started as a symbolic act of healing had grown into something real. Its workshops on detecting financial deceit in relationships drew participants from across the Northeast. Stories emerged, quiet, heartbreaking, familiar. But for many, the foundation had stopped schemes before they matured. Lives had been changed. Futures protected. Logan never spoke publicly about his connection to the foundation. The anonymous donor story remained intact, and he preferred it that way. The ones who needed to know knew. Professionally, Logan found something unexpected. A collaboration with architect Talia Noor, originally sparked by her curiosity in his structural redesigns, had evolved into a partnership. Their first 3 projects had garnered attention in architectural circles for combining environmental consciousness with livable elegance. Their partnership, over time, deepened beyond work. There were no secrets.
No manipulation.
No performance. Talia's world was built on clarity, her creativity grounded in purpose. Unlike Ruby's polished charm, Talia's presence was simple, truthful, and quietly resilient. It never demanded attention. It simply earned trust. Logan didn't rush anything. He no longer needed to. He had what Ruby and her circle never understood: peace. Real security didn't come from hidden accounts or manipulation. It came from knowing that every pillar of your life was strong enough to stand without deception. He thought back often, not with bitterness but with clarity. They had tried to break him, to steal not just money, but legacy, identity, future. And in doing so, they'd given him the one thing they never expected: freedom. From the ruins of betrayal, Logan had built something stronger. And as he looked out across the valley, snow beginning to fall in quiet spirals, he understood something that had taken him a year to realize fully. Revenge hadn't been the goal. Rebuilding had been the triumph. And this time, the foundation would hold.